"Come on, just a few more tweaks and I know we can get this thing working," said Lieutenant John Smith as he fiddled with the alien device. It had been discovered on this strange new planet that his exploration team had landed on just yesterday. The native species, called the Zentari, had fled as soon as the human ship entered orbit, leaving behind everything in their small settlement. While most of the expedition crew busied themselves cataloging the abandoned buildings and artifacts, John had made a beeline for what was clearly some kind of machine shop. His engineer's instincts had gone into overdrive looking at all the unfamiliar tools and components strewn about. And in the center of it all was this strange contraption, clearly technological in nature, but its purpose eluded him. At least for now. John was determined to figure out how the device worked, with or without the help of its original creators. The Zentari were a squirrely-looking species, tall and excessively thin with 6 multi-jointed arms, oversized heads and eyes, and skin that changed colors with their mood. John had watched some of them on the settlement's security cameras as they fled the approaching humans. They moved in a skittery, jittery way that he good-naturedly described as paging Dr. Bug. But for all their unpredictability, it seemed the Zentari knew a thing or two about machinery. This device they had left behind was sophisticated, John could tell. He gently tried adjusting what seemed to be a power regulator, tweaking the settings up and down while monitoring for a reaction. Suddenly, the machine let out a loud electrical buzz, and a small wisp of smoke emerged from its side. "Aha," said John triumphantly. "Now we're getting somewhere." He became lost in his work, finessing the regulator bit by bit in an effort to tease more life out of the inert device. His coffee grew cold on a nearby bench as he worked through lunchtime, oblivious to everything but the tantalizing puzzle before him. By mid-afternoon, John's efforts were interrupted by the rumbling voice of the expedition commander coming up behind him. "Lieutenant Smith, just what do you think you're doing with that, whatever it is?" John pushed back the welder's goggles he had donned and saluted smartly as he stood up from where he was crouched over the device. "Commander Orwell, I was just attempting to ascertain the function and operating principles of this piece of Zentari equipment, sir." Commander Orwell was a tall, imposing man who had been less than enthusiastic about having a junior engineer like John assigned to his crew. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the mess of alien machine parts spread around his workstation. "It looks to me like you're making a damned mess, Lieutenant. We're supposed to be cataloging potential alien tech advancements, not playing mad scientist with pieces of junk." John felt his face flush, but he stood his ground. "With respect, sir, I don't think this is just a piece of junk. The engineering and design workmanship are light years ahead anything we've seen before. I think with a little more time I could even get it powered up and working." The commander frowned, unconvinced. These zipperheads could barely work up the nerve to talk to us without wetting themselves. "You really think they're capable of advanced technology?" He eyed the still smoking machine. "Doesn't look like much from where I stand." Now it was John's turn to stand a little taller. "Appearances can be deceiving, as I'm sure you've found in your past encounters, Commander. Some of humanity's biggest breakthroughs have come from odd, inspiring sources. I'd say the sheer complexity of this device warrants further investigation." "Wouldn't you?" Commander Orwell hesitated. The junior officer did seem awfully sure of himself, and they still knew so little about these alien inhabitants or what they were capable of. Better to err on the side of caution when it came to understanding potential new technology. "Very well, Lieutenant," he said slowly. "I'll give you until 1800 hours to either get that contraption up and running or put all the pieces back where you found them, untouched. If you can prove it does something useful, then it merits further study. But no more mad scientist antics, am I clear?" John grinned. "Crystal clear, sir. I'll know in a few more hours if this thing can actually work." He enthusiastically turned back to his project as the commander walked away shaking his head. His talented but quirky engineer took some getting used to. As the day shift ended and his colleagues departed the machine shop one by one, bidding John amused good nights, he continued to tweak settings and cross-reference connections. For all the Zentara's nervous energy, he had to admit they really knew their stuff. This device was brilliantly conceived. It seemed to utilize crystalline central processing units somehow networked together. If he could just isolate the power sequencing. A deafening alarm sounded, shocking John from his hyper-focused work. He jumped back as sparks began shooting out from the device, smoke pouring from its inner workings. Oh no, what's happening? He feverishly tried to pinpoint the malfunction, but within moments the calamity stopped as abruptly as it had started. John coughed and fanned the smoke away from his face. The device now sat inert and lifeless once again in the center of the room. He frantically looked around. 1800 hours was fast approaching. There was no way he could get it operational again before Commander Orwell returned. Dejectedly, he started gathering up tools to return them to their rightful places. He had failed. The device had proved too complex for even his skills. As Orwell would be sure to remind him, these aliens and their technology were still mysteries far beyond humanity's knowledge. With a heavy sigh, he began disassembling the charred machine to reset it back to its original state. But as he worked, a quiet hum began emanating from its heart. John paused and bent his ear closer. It was definitely powered up. He could feel the thrum of energy coursing within it. Cautiously, he reconnected a loose power conduit. A glow pulsed from the crystalline processors, brighter and stronger than before. Scrambling now, John reassembled the remaining exterior components until finally, the whole machine seemed to almost levitate before him, perfectly balanced on its anti-gravity projectors. He gradually eased the regulator higher until the device was smoothly and steadily hovering 4 feet off the workshop floor. "Yes, I did it!" John exclaimed, practically dancing around his alien creation. Just then the door burst open and Commander Orwell charged in, alarmed by the sounds of his shouting. He pulled up short at the sight of the floating whirring device shooting rays of light around the room. "What? How?" he stammered. John threw him a jaunty salute. "Zentari hover generator fully online and operational at 1801 hours, Commander. Just needed a man's touch, and maybe a drop more regulator tweaks," he smiled triumphantly. "Looks like our buggy friends might have a lot more to teach us after all." Commander Orwell just stared open-mouthed at the incredible machine floating before him. Perhaps they had underestimated these Zentari aliens and the skills of his unorthodox but gifted engineer. "Carry on, Lieutenant," he finally said with a nod. John grinned as he watched him walk slowly from the shop, shaking his head in wonder. Then he turned back to the generator, gears already whirring with ideas on how to improve the anti-grav design. He had cracked the secret of alien tech in a single day, and John was just getting started. The Zentari and Earth had so much more to learn from each other. What an adventure their two peoples had